Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, hello. Before I run everything, the classic check that I'm always doing. Do you hear me? Because the most important is sound in this. And can you see me? We're streaming on 3 different platforms. So just making sure if you can put a little thumb up or just in the chat. So I'm pretty sure that on the technical aspect, we're up and running. So I know that there is some latency between you and me. But again, thank you, all of you. I see that there are already 10 people connecting, so I hope that they will have some messages coming back. So sounds like we are okay. So today, hot topic, security. Maybe not for all of us the most sexy one, although I think the guys over here, they kind of find it a very sexy topic, and that's why I will bring a couple of people on stage. But for me, with the Luzmo and everything we do with our panel discussion, it's really about opening conversation and trying to have interaction with you and answering potential question, you being able to ask us question, but I also bring every time a panel of external persons so that you have even more brain juice over here so that you can ask more question. And before we start, I will bring Stijn, I will bring Greg, and of course, our own Haroen will be there as well, which is on stage. A big shout out as well to Connie, which is hidden in the background. So you should all have like applause and hands up for Connie. Otherwise, I couldn't run this show with those guys over here. So very important to have them. Hello, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Amazing.
And you
Thank you.
unmute yourself. Yes, that's the beauty
Hi,
of
John.
organizing those things. So I will buy a T-shirt where I can on and off the LEDs. Hello, Zamzarax in the chat. Hello, Sandy. Thank you for the thumb up. I will say, let's start maybe with you, Stan. If you need to explain your job to your mom in an elevator pitch, how does that sound?
Well, let me try the audio first. You hearing me okay?
Perfectly at my end.
Hey, thanks. Hi, everyone, and thank you, Connie, for the background work, of course. If I have to explain my job to, my mother or somebody like that, first of all, I don't think I'm going to succeed, John. But just to briefly explain it in this conversation, so my title at Collibra is Chief Data Citizen. And this is my third role that I'm taking up in the company's 17-year history. You have to grow, and the company grows. You have to grow yourself too. The mainstream title for my job is Chief Data Officer, which is a sort of a new profession that came in the last, let's say, 15 years or so into the market. You could literally count them on one hand in 2008. And I play that role inside of Collibra. So that's my job. If I would have to explain it to somebody who doesn't know much about data or computers in general, I would say that it's like a boss of data job.
Okay. Is it something related to GDPR that came in a couple of years ago? Is that the title that has been linked to GDPR, or was it already previously of that we had that data boss, like you said?
I think I would wish to say that GDPR did help.
Okay.
But I would argue that GDPR fragmented a little bit, also because the chief data officer, the boss of data, they're the ones who own the data platform or maybe the data policy or stuff like that. And obviously, privacy would be an overlap there. But what happened with GDPR, because it was compliancy driven, is mostly adopted by the compliancy folks, the privacy lawyers. So very often in organizations, you see that privacy responsibility is a little bit separated in different responsibility buckets, where they might in some organizations overlap a little or a lot. In some organizations are completely separate programs even. I mean, in my opinion, the latter is very wrong, but it takes a while for organizations to grow into that.
Totally makes sense. And maybe a quick word about Collibra, and then we will move on, because I'm sure that everybody knows Collibra, but for those that shouldn't,
That's
what is
even harder,
Collibra?
John. That's even harder.
Okay,
We've been
we skip the
practicing.
questions.
Yeah. That elevator pitch for years, but we are, we made our career, if you will, as a software company in becoming the leader of the data governance software space, essentially creating that category. And right now we're expanding that into with AI's disruption, which we're now about 2 to 3 years in. We're expanding that from data governance to data and AI governance, or as we call it, unified governance.
Perfect. Perfect transition for Greg. So I will not ask you the same question to explain your job to your mom, but to a 6-year-old kid. How should you explain your job, Greg?
Gosh, that's a challenge. I've got a young child, and I think she just about gets it. So I'm head of product at Intigriti. My role is to simplify products as easy as I can to make them usable and get adoption. So to my 6-year-old would be, I need people to use the tools that I build easily and understand them and gain them success. It's effectively what I do.
Perfect. Less than 10 words in a sentence to pitch your
go.
job. Perfect, Greg. Perfect.
I'd have
Maybe
to
a quick word.
with gaming and Nintendo's for her to really grasp the concept of it. But that's
I'm pretty sure we should do more of those things to make everybody understand what are we talking when we're talking about security, and maybe a little word about Intigriti themselves.
Yeah, we're a crowdsourced security company. So what we are is we're a trust-driven platform that allows ethical hackers to uncover vulnerabilities across customers. So effectively, we use ethical hackers to source, to find and uncover vulnerabilities before malicious hackers can. And we provide a platform that effectively enables AI to support that.
Pretty cool, pretty cool. It's just strange for me to hear the word hacker and ethical. You're all from that kind of industry and security, and you understand it much better. But for me, it's really strange. It's saying that there are good robbers somewhere in the world, if I get it right.
Yeah, the transition. we interchange the word researcher and hacker, but hackers are amazing creative people, and there are ethical hackers out there who do a phenomenal amount of work. And so sometimes we do call it researcher to soften the wording of what they do. But effectively, that's what they do. They're hugely creative people who hack a way through to your systems to find vulnerabilities so you can get secured.
I love it, love it. So I think it's really good introduction over here, Haroen, because some of them of our audience may know you, some maybe not. So who is Haroen?
Who is Haroon? That's a question I ask myself as well every day. Still finding the answers after 36 years. No, I'm Haroon. I'm a CTO, one of the founders here at Luzmo.
And so you take care of data security for all our clients and the global security of the entire platform, correct?
Yeah, we are not the largest organization. So as a CTO, I wear many hats, and running our security program is one of those hats. One of the ones that interests me, quite a lot. To be honest, it's a very interesting space. Very interesting.
It's always evolving.
Things
That's
happening.
crazy. It's always evolving. It's continuously changing. So cool. I think intro is done. So my main idea over here, and so that the folks know, hello Yannick, by the way, I see somebody that I know in the chat as well. I will drop a question, and the one that feel like really, I can bring value to that question, he answer it. If you don't, I will say who need to answer it. So I'm sure that I have an answer, because the purpose is not having an open question. Greg is already laughing me out, so that's perfect. That's why I'm already telling, if I don't get an answer to the question, I will say who needs to give an answer. If we talk about security, what does security really means today in a SaaS product environment? Just that we can build a scene. What does security mean in 2025 in the SaaS industry? And how maybe has it changed? Because there are not only young people over here, through the years, because I think some of you knew the world before even the internet, some saw the internet arriving. And so it's really to put a big frame around it. And if there is no answer, I can already give you 86% of organization now consider SaaS security top priority. Aha, you will tell me. But 75% of those people experience incidents in the last year. So I think that was just to frame where security is. And I will mute myself, otherwise I will try to answer it. Haroen, you're the boss man, so you will need to start.
Yeah, no problem. For me, it's not really a dilemma, the 86 versus the 75. I'm a bit surprised that not 100% of SaaS companies think security is a top priority. Perhaps they're only working with public data. But having an incident for 75% of them, that doesn't surprise me. It's those 25% that haven't had one. Of course, that can happen, but it can also mean that they're just not looking well enough, and they're missing quite a few.
I think to your point, they're probably not aware that they had something that could be those 25% potentially, I guess.
Most likely, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, as a SaaS company, people are entrusting their data to us. Sometimes the most critical data that those companies safeguard, and it's only natural that we spend enough resources and think sufficiently about how we can secure that data and in what way data can be used, also in an ethical way.
Okay, maybe to Stan and Greg, how have you seen security potentially evolve? And I will say both of you, I'd say one from a ethical hacker perspective. Have you seen like it increase through time? Where are the main challenges maybe? And it's a question for both of you because you're really living into that kind of industry, that sector.
I mean, it's continually evolving. I think from a SaaS point of view, how I've seen it evolve over the last few years is security very much. In fact, we've looked at security within companies has changed. So security very much was that one sole man's job, IT, to make sure that he was ISO compliant and make sure he had the certificates ready for an RFP. And that's changed a lot. And I refer, I guess, slightly to certain frameworks. I think there's a BSIM framework, which I think is business maturity. But they start to use what was security across the whole, intelligence across the business. How we're growing the intelligence across the business, across different stakeholders. It's not just about the IT, it's about the governance behind it, the training we put behind it. Because especially in the industry that I work in, it's not just about being certified on a certain element. Every single part of your organization has opportunity. You've got third-party companies, you've got people buying SaaS tools, marketing buying SaaS tools, you've got loads of different products coming in, and all that provides a security layer. And I think that knowledge is rapidly going out because of the incidents we're seeing out in the market. We're starting to see it, knowledge is getting better. We're seeing IT teams now becoming actual, not one man, but actually full teams scaling rapidly. Huge difference still between early adopters and those who are very technically heavy, but definitely starting to see a shift. I think I saw a stat, was it? I think the cost, the outgoing resource cost was something like 1% or 2% of your resources was based in security and IT, and I see that's grown to about 5% of outgoing cost of resourcing going towards IT teams. So we're starting to see that shift over.
Could we say that organizations are becoming more aware, or did they invest more to avoid any kind of risk that we were probably not doing before?
A bit of both, really. I've worked on projects previously where it very much was you sit down in the priority room with the executive team and you kind of go, we're wanting to put in this new security feature, we're wanting to implement something different, whether it be authentication and it's very much you're up against someone who's got a revenue driver of, I've got this new product that if someone wants it's a new shiny feature, there's a direct revenue versus risk factor. And it's something that we've done quite a bit of here at Intigriti is really looking at what's the return of security investment. And I think that's a huge part that we're getting clever at. Companies are starting to get smarter of how you get the return of investment from putting security practices in. Whether that be a bug bounty program, whether that be a better authentication tool in there. And we're starting to see people having structured conversations now at exec level, kind of going, the priority of this is getting higher because we don't want to be another service. We've seen now direct impact on trade, on IPOs, on impacts that it's had. And the knowledge is getting more widely known, I think. So, yes, I think prioritization is changing a lot.
I like that. Maybe to you, Haroen, because I know that from what I'm seeing, or maybe I'm wrong, but previously security would come up at the end of a product development or sprint. I think that is something that has also evolved, I think, through the amount of years that you are also now in the engineering. I might be wrong, but for me, you had nearly a finished product, and then it was, hey guys, by the way, we should get that stuff secure in a way or another. I have the feeling that has drastically changed also in development processes for SaaS company. Is it more up directly from day one that we take it at Luzmo, for example? How do you cope with it?
I think historically, the other way around, design processes were very much upfront, let's say 20 years ago or 40 years ago. And today we are more designing applications and developing them as we go, and merging those two processes together, the agile versus waterfall discussion. However, a ton of legacy systems never thought about security and are still widespread throughout organizations, and have an even larger attack surface than ever, because we've been hooking them up to internet and adding a layer on top of it as a wrapper. But fundamentally, these are very insecure systems, and it still costs and has cost a ton of money to add security to these later on, because I think the most efficient way to tackle security very practically in an organization today is training your engineers better, and making sure they have sufficient time to write secure code, to work on improvements that are not necessarily part of the feature backlog that the product is pushing. But that they have the time, because catching issues later on is extremely expensive. Just finding out where they are, fixing them, etc., and then not speaking even of the cost of actually dealing with a potential breach or data leak, because the cost of those can be gigantic, or there can even be punishments, of course, as stipulated in various regulations.
Okay, totally makes sense. Kind of like that. I like that analogy that you made with waterfall and how we now conceive basically security from day one. Question for you, Stijn, because we want to hear your lovely voice as well. What are the most overlooked risks of security flaws to avoid when it comes to security data access? And I think that's so into your right spot. I can re-put the question even in the chat because I can read it. I will put it in the public chat to all of you so you can read it and think about it as well. So what are the most overlooked risks or security flaws to avoid when it comes to security data access? And I think that is something very hot.
I think it's going to be very simple if I want to answer it short, and then I'll elaborate a little bit, John.
Yeah, sure.
I would say it's people and it's data. Now, I'll unpack that a little bit, right? But before we go there, maybe the way I saw it change, to go back to your first question, is we've been around in business since 2008. And for example, our software at first was an on-premise deployment. Now, that came with a bunch of security pressures we got from the customer, like security consultants giving you 1,000 questions: is your data encrypted at rest, and so on and so forth. So then around the 2010s, our company made the move to the cloud, the disruption of the cloud, right? So that made our business over 90% SaaS. And then all that happened is that the vector of attack became bigger, right? Because now the customer doesn't control the environment, the server upon which it is. It doesn't control the server anymore, right? So the vector of attack became bigger, and with it, the security scrutiny from the market. And that has continued for us ever since. So I would say that security has always grown and become more important. And obviously, it's a proactive stance that we have to take. Because when we do a new product introduction, that's a process. Security is a team that gets involved before even a design or code is ever made, right? And we have to do it in this way because that is part of the business of being a SaaS company. And the funny thing is, John, that you see the disruptions over the years, right? So now you have these customers who are like such security lovers and needing to be, that they'll ask for your cloud air-gapped, right? So it
What
sort
is
of
a cloud
becomes
air-gapped?
well, it's a cloud that's away from the internet. in other words.
Okay.
And when you look it up, you can Google for Google Cloud air gap, and you'll find it.
Okay.
So these are serious offerings. Now, with more disruptions coming into play, like for example, Gen AI, your vector, your attack surface where people can attack you is becoming bigger. For example, people will now take the data, a PDF file of confidential information, put it in one of those chatbots and ask chat, tell me the summary. And thereby, despite all the protections your company might have in place, thereby people and the data becomes again the weak link in this new disruption. And to get back to that question, right? So people and data. So I fundamentally think, John, that organizations today are still struggling with and learning how to master that new asset. They've had decades to master the money asset, right? They've had decades to deal with the talent asset, people, and so on and so forth. Whereas data, yes, they've invested in it, but treating data as an asset so that you can count all the data you have and you know where it sits and so on and so forth, that is still a maturity curve that is permeating the world, the industry as a whole. Of course, there's people who are more advanced than others, but mostly a lot of organizations continue to struggle with treating data as an asset. And as a consequence, if you don't know where all your data sits or how it moves, if you don't know all the assets you have, what you get is people take the data from one system, let's say a highly protected system, put it in another system to make maybe a beautiful dashboard or a PDF or Ask Chat, which doesn't have any protection, right? So they're taking the data asset and copying it in another place, and now you have twice the risk, twice the vector of attack that can happen. But they're copying it multiple times, right? So it's one aspect is that organizations are not treating data as an asset as such, and they're still learning how to do it. So all the consequences of security follow from that. And the second is the people aspect. People don't know their responsibilities around that asset because it is not being treated yet fully as an asset. And thus people make all these mistakes. They upload something to chat thinking it's safe, but it's not. They copy it all over. I'll give you an example, John. So recently we recently added access governance to Collibra's platform. But essentially, the way it goes in companies, if you need access to data, and it doesn't matter whether it sits in Snowflake or Databricks or Redshift or ClickHouse or BigQuery or any of those other ones, right? So you come into an organization and like, I need that data to do my very important business work, and give me access to the data. What you're going to do is you're going to call a friend, Haroen, hey, I need access to the data. Or go on Teams to bother Greg because Greg is the data guy. It's like, hey, Greg, I need access to the data. And you'll get it in some way, shape, or form. Your purpose of why you need that data might not be checked. And more importantly, your access may be permanent for all we know. So if there's no proper process in place for controlling how that access is given but also taken away, then it becomes a social network of people giving each other access, thereby again enlarging that attack surface. So people and data.
Yeah, really, and also the word governance from what you're telling over here. I really like that idea, and I saw Greg doing like
I'm a
this.
big governance bonehead.
Greg, are people still exporting the data then to basically their local machine and then just sharing it through Teams? Is that what you're seeing?
No, I think I would have been maybe I would have been harsh and flipped it and gone, people are still the biggest risk. It's that is still historic, and I think Stijn's nailed it on the head there. Data is an asset, and if you think, like, for example, when the company golden strategy is written out, or when you think of a new idea in the company and you think it's going to next thing, you lock it down. You're like, we're not going to tell anybody about this. You keep it in, let's not share this document. And you keep it in leadership only. And yet we don't treat data in that same way. Data's becoming one of the most valuable assets. And you look at, actually, what was it? It was Snowflake. I think you mentioned Snowflake. They had a breach last year. I think 2024 was a breach. I think that was credentials. leaked credentials, that suddenly gave access to AT&T, gave access to Santander, and just created, there's more complications around it. I'm sure there's more technical ads behind it, but the bare bones of it is leaked credentials, and it's from credentials that haven't been renewed. And so that is your weakest link. It's the weakest link around creating security around data. It's ensuring that you've got these processes in place. Very quickly, you can suddenly put data in places. And I've been in organizations where you still get a spreadsheet with the data through. You still hear agencies being sent contact lists for. And so there's those kind of things, which, maybe that was 5-10 years ago, but it wouldn't surprise me if that still happens. And it becomes a number one security, which, when you look at SaaS's responsibility on this, it's still one of my bugbears, which I'm going to start mentioning probably 3-4 times throughout this session. But the whole, definitely the authentication by default, the pass key or the credential, those now are becoming default. And it still baffles me when I still see kind of, we'll charge you more for a pass key authentication on your service. And I'm just like, well, why? This is fundamental education that we should be putting into services, and fundamental things as governance should be putting on. I shouldn't rely on on Stijn using his own best password that he's used, or he's got one password that he knows, or he might be using. In fact, I can tell you a story here, which is
Go for stories.
I know. So we did a show in DEF CON not too long ago. We've got an amazing guy called Inti, who's our chief hacker. I know, what a title. But he did thank you, Stijn. But he did an amazing example to show, those password generators you get out of password tools, whether it's Dashlane, etc., and you can generate them. At the end of the day, it still computes in the background generating them. And he showed that you were able to create a software that could tell you how they're working out the generation tool. So he ran the generation tool, ran 5 passwords, and then plugged it into this tool, which read how they was generating it, and then it predicted the next 10. And you had generate, and it predicted what the next generated password is going to be. Small things like that shows you how weak passwords are. And the note was, if you are using a generated password, put your own details in there, because as a computer, that's created a logic on how to generate passwords which are unbreakable. So all of this is kind of, you start putting in process, kind of going, what are things like passkey, kind of going, what are the things that we put in as a minimum to ensure we've got data security, as well as governance, what you do share, what you don't share, what you can mention, what you can't mention. So people.
No, I'm afraid, Greg, because all my passwords are in Dashlane, and they are all generated by Dashlane. And when I say all, it's really.
So were mine until I got. I now. This is my tip for you today. I now generate it, but then I added 2 extra few characters in there just to make sure it's not being generated.
Tip of the day. So you will tell me that I need to update to 100+ passwords that I have in Dashlane. I love the idea. No, but it's good that you say it, because most of the time you think you secure yourself by adding that layer of security, but there is still much to do if you want to be more secured at the end of the day. I think it boils down to a transition, and I would love your view on this as well, Haroen. I think there is a problem also about basically you want to build more security, but then you bring, in my opinion, much more friction at the end users, which seems to be also more and more problematic. I will take a simple example. She will kill me because she's downstairs. I know that my wife has 3 passwords for all the tools that she uses. And basically, if you have the 3, you just test, and most of the time you have 3 attempts before you're blocked in. But it seems that frustration at user level, if we think about SaaS, is also something we need to take into account if we want to secure more or platforms, and at the end of the day, the user from themselves. But what's your point of view on this? Because your passkey, 2-factor authentication, whatever. But I would love to hear Haroen about that.
I think 3 is 2 more than the average.
I will tell her that, so I don't get beat today. So that's very kind of you, Haroen.
No, it's true. In the extreme, security is fundamentally a little bit at odds with getting value from a platform or the data. Like, the most secure thing would be to throw away the data. Or lock it on an air-gapped server and throw away the password. But probably there are economical reasons why we want to do things with that data. I do think that we are setting or holding people at kind of impossible standards. Sometimes a lot of data security best practices are really impractical for people to follow, and they have a job to do. So we must create an environment in which those two things are not at odds with each other. That people tend to take the route of lowest friction, and in that way do things in the most secure way. For example, using passkeys or not setting password policies that require you to reset a password every 2 weeks, that fundamentally end up being worse than the original.
I have a
Another
statistic
example.
for that, Haroen. You know that more than 60% of the user are really frustrated with that rotation every 2 weeks of password. That's what gets them the most pissed from what I'm seeing in the analytics. Yeah, and I understand Stijn as well, same way, but that's the way to go. If you want to be secure, you need to switch those every 2 weeks. But it seems that it's really annoying for the people.
It's not even a recommendation anymore. It's actively discouraged to still do this, and any enterprise that still stands by that is using a playbook from 10 years ago. But another example where we are really keeping people at very high standards is. So we talked about overlooked risks and security flaws, and one of them is definitely just forgetting about assets, like old domains that are still running, old apps that are still running, the server in the basement that is still doing something and nobody knows anymore what it does. In the largest organizations, it's probably even forgetting entire employees that are still working for you, or teams that still work for you, and that you forgot to include in some latest policy or security initiative. Just listing everything you have and following up on that is a difficult task and should be company assisted. We shouldn't just rely on people remembering everything. So we should have better tools and technologies to visualize what are all the assets that we actually have and are responsible for.
I think you're right. I'm hearing a lot around the human, because Stijn, you were talking, data and human. It seems that the human part is the most complex to handle in this entire topic about security today. I like that idea that you might have forget a team in India working for you, which has access to all your other platforms, because that must be true. There must be organizations that have really huge leaks of those data everywhere. Basically, when we say that 86% of the companies are now really considering as high priority, but only 76 are increasing budget, isn't there an issue over there? Is it just on the technical that they invest? I don't have the data about the investment, if it's global or just on the technology part. Because in my opinion, I know when I arrived 8 months ago at Luzmo, the first thing I had to do was SOC 2, for example. It was the first step before even getting my credentials to platform. I had to listen to Gregory, which did a very extended presentation with decks, with Q&As, and every 3 months there is a refresh. Is that something common today in SaaS regarding Stijn and Greg, because you are daily based with that, or is it really linked to the policy that Luzmo is putting in place? Really that act of every 3 months retraining, upgrading your people about security?
Well, from my perspective, I'll let Greg of course speak for himself, but from my perspective, this is the case. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily the 3-month interval, but there's a regular frequency to having everybody in the company having to take maybe even the same training again that you've taken every year, let's say. I've certainly felt like I've seen this training before. But the thing is, of course, that as attackers get more instruments like AI, you also as an employee need to be updated on what has changed. So taking the training regularly is rehashing what you might have forgotten from the last time, but also adding new stuff into it. And in our case, there is you have to literally sit through it for a number of hours and prove through a test that you've actually paid attention. If you don't score let's say 80 out of 100 for every test, then you got to take it all over again. And I think that's necessary, because people, no matter how well-intentioned and competent they might be, they might not know all the tricks attackers use today. I mean, John, only a few years ago, it would be hard for us to imagine that you would pick up the phone with a video call and somebody looking like your parent shows up and in a convincing voice tells you to wire money, right? And today, that's just very accessible to a lot of attackers. Now, then you have to ask yourself the following question, which is, why would the attackers target you? I mean, even the biggest companies in the planet, with the best budget and the best engineers, they have attacks happening against them, and failing in some cases. I mean, Facebook gets hacked, Microsoft gets hacked, etc.
Orange in Belgium.
The number of examples is everyone over time. So I think what matters is that you look at the security almost like a cat and mice game, whereby you're always trying to stay ahead of the attackers, right? You're always just trying to, you can't be the easiest to break into, right? Because that's maybe where they'll start their breakages. So you always have to stay one step ahead with however many resources you have. While, of course, keeping your business, keeping some resources for your business as well. So I would say the training is normal, because it is part of the cat and mice game of staying ahead of the attackers as best as you can.
I really like that idea of cat and mouse game that you said. I think it's a mindset then that you can integrate easily or more easily in the culture to make people aware that basically it's continuously attacked. It's about being always trying to have that advantage edge, not to get catched by the cat that you try to have. Greg, what's your point on that? Or maybe training as well? Because I know that you had amazing stories when we were discussing on the other conversation with you. I know that I was looking at a slot this weekend to put at my door, so that I was keyless. And I said, I will never buy that stuff because of Greg.
No, it's I mean that you can scaremonger, and it is quite scary. I mean, we've taken, obviously we're in the sector we're in, we take security to a whole new level. So we've gamified it, so in a way to adopt it. So we often try to catch each other out. So don't leave your laptop open in this company. If you leave it open in Intigriti, someone will get in. And you will be paying a hefty fee in some form of way. But we've gamified it, and we gamified it through phishing emails. You could even phish your other colleagues. And so it's become a bit of a sport. There's a leaderboard in there, and I think that's how we've managed to manage it. And we're a mid-sized organisation to do it. But I do know, and I appreciate, when you get to a large organisation, it's hugely complex to try to maintain that organisation when you've got turnover of staff happening at pace. So to say, gamify it on that kind of organization, as soon as you get to bigger scales, it becomes a lot more harder, a lot more. And there's, in fact, a video I said just a few days ago, and I've seen it in practice when I went to Vegas to DEF CON, which is social engineering, which is a whole new different space. So not only are you starting to worry about, worrying about leaving your Post-it note with your password on your laptop or leaving your laptop open. I literally saw it happen. Someone sitting in a booth, and they were challenged to go and call up someone from their LinkedIn. They called up someone who was in reception who recently posted the fact she started a new job. On her table was a welcome pack with a badge, and a badge had a little color code on it, what department she was in. And they managed to social engineer her, the badge number, her ID number, her email address, where she worked, just by phoning up, going, "Hey, how you doing? I'm John from security. You should have been all settled in. Are you all fine?" "Yeah, I'm absolutely great. You should have also received your badge. It's an orange one." They got all this from pictures that have been posted. Go, all I need you to do is just confirm your security ID on the back of it. They literally just social engineered the entire everything out of her. And I'll send a video yesterday on YouTube. Same kind of thing. If you Google on YouTube, it's a social engineering hack. It's absolutely brilliant. It's about an hour conversation. It's a different way people are social engineering data out of you. And I think it's not just the stuff that we're used to now. There are so many different ways now, which and for us, gamifying it just puts it into reality. We see it day to day, obviously, in the industry we're in as well. But gamifying, getting everyone constantly talking about it. We have the training and process, but actually to put it into reality has really made an impact and really makes you see what's happening.
I really like that idea of gamifying, just to make sure that everybody goes in there. I think the three of you are also parents, and it was totally not foreseen, but education seems to be like really core. When do we start talking about security with kids?
From young. It's topical with me because I had my, she won't be watching, she's at school. I had my 10-year-old who wrote me a presentation this weekend about why she should get Roblox. And one of her reasons is dad works in hacking, so I'll let him know if I think I'm being hacked. Already that a 10-year-old can kind of start to have those conversations. And I remember going to a presentation in London where someone's speaking about getting children very young to try to just understand it, because hackers are being recruited from quite young. And so they're being taught about it. They're playing on Roblox. They try to find ways around Roblox and how to get extra points. And they start to learn. They get into forums and they start to build up in this mechanism. Same thing as children. Get them early. Getting them to. My daughter understands what a hacker is. Understands about when someone communicates. Understand about password security. Because those are the conversations I'm having when she's on there, when she's the iPad. It's a constant battle between my wife going, "Oh, we shouldn't give her too much." I'm like, "Give her a load. She needs to experiment." So yeah, from young, and it's the same way as someone steps into your organization, and when they walk in there, teaching them right from the start, giving them examples. Look, this is what can happen. By the way, everything you post in there, I don't want to scare you, but LinkedIn's a perfect place. You start there day one. I know you've just started. I know your position. I know how long you've been there for. I know what your last job is. I can phone you and just social engineer you. But it's those being aware of it is the first step. So at least you can start to recognize it. Children, good test bed.
I like that idea. Any other one that I want to add on kids? Because at the end of the day, I think this is where I see that we will all need to invest drastically and quickly. It's because they are the next one with that. Otherwise, I will have a last one because I'm also conscious of time. But if someone want to still talk about kids, now is the time. No, everybody feels cool. So I have a good one over here. What are the new risks or opportunities regarding the topic we are in when we try to talk about AI? Because I guess that AI is playing a huge role in the volume of attacks today, but can also maybe be a better shield to those? Or what is basically, how should we consider AI and all that data security governance? How do we approach it? Or how should we approach it? It's for Stijn or Haroen.
I can give a quick answer, right? And for the previous question, John, just to be very clear, I don't have kids myself, but I can only imagine as a parent how you deal with it. I wouldn't have an answer. And that's why I think it's so much more important that we build systems which are fundamentally resilient, right? If I make a messaging app and it's, using unencrypted storage or transfer, that's a big mistake, right? And you're exposing kids to things they don't even understand, and they shouldn't understand that. So you can't teach them that.
That's a very good point. It's also, we have an obligation as builders to also go that extra mile to protect basically the kids or the users. I just took the kids because for me, I have a boy of 15 and I just see how bad they are at all those things today, sharing their Snapchat account because he got his mobile phone, picked up for a week because he didn't do homework, but they need to maintain, I don't know what. So let's exchange password. And I'm like, man, are you nuts? Or
perhaps another one. If you're, sorry to interrupt, Stijn, but if your service is used by children and you know that, and children have smartphones nowadays, does every service need to be global, and does everyone within that service need to be addressable by every other user by default? Because
very good point.
That assumption that must be possible is also the cause for many potential security and other types of risks.
Yeah, what I learned about security already from the way back when is very simple. It's something you are, something you own, and something you know, right? So your son can only share what they know. They cannot share what they are. Like, for example, maybe some sort of biometric identity. Now, with respect to AI, John, I think I explained it earlier. It will offer new protections to protect old systems. But I think the speed with which it is offering opportunities for attack is creating a lot more dangerous attacks a lot faster. because previously you needed to be, like a state actor, in the sense that you needed a lot of resources to break into things or to apply social engineering at scale. Now you don't. So I think we will see a lot more problems because of AI security-wise in the short term than we will see mitigations against those problems. When you see examples of somebody vibe coding an app where there is absolutely no consideration of security because they don't know what they're doing, then we just know we're going to see, all the problems that we had with the web or the mobile phone, the Android version, that is, with the unprotected app store. I think we'll see that all over again before the providers of security catch up to that onslaught. I mean, even if you're a provider of security today using AI to make AI security, you still have to get your widget into all people's hands, and that itself takes time.
I like that idea. Like you said, it will first be like a bit more dark, I would say, before that we can like see some more lights through it, because that's something we will need to go through it. That is where I guess those ethical hackers come into play that Greg was mentioning as well. Those guys will try to help, I will say, secure the service. I also really like that idea about when you talked about kids, Haroen, about should we give like always access to everything? Can we not like reduce the access and play with those kind of in Dutch we would say boerenverstand, just using the brain. Do we need to give like more than Belgium for kids playing on Roblox? Do they need to go worldwide, for example? It's a good point. How do we see basically all those? Oh no, I will reframe it. What would be one piece of advice that you would give to everybody in a SaaS organization working around security? What would be a piece of advice? Because I see that I'm already at 15 minutes with you guys. I want to make sure that I not too long. What would be your best advice, Haroen, to the security person that you're yourself in your own organization?
I would advise to think big enough and think small enough. Like I think many security practices are somewhere in the middle. They're like not comprehensive. They fix an area of security within the company, but leave a lot open, and on the other hand are very impractical, are not really followed by people, are too hard to follow, and people fight them and find other ways to do it. So you should take a couple of steps that are very practical and easy to do, that solve or close the gaps that 90% of the attacks will be doing. And you need to think big enough of a long-term plan on how to close the other 10%. But start with very practical mitigations and find vendors who are specialists in these areas, and that have a lot of knowledge, capability, and time and resources to make more secure systems that you can rely on.
Love that. Really good stuff. Greg, do you want to add something? Because you have probably more than one tip.
There's a lot around that, but I think, I always like the Black Mirror test. The what if. It's anything you do, especially with a team, just run the Black Mirror test. And it's both across buying SaaS and your own enterprise SaaS, is run the what if scenarios on everything that you have. It's good to if I said this, what if this was to go wrong? I used to work in genealogy at one point, and if you imagine the amount of data that we used to put into family trees, we had records and data of every single people and the parents. That would be a great insurance data, if you wanted to cover in there. But it's running the what if scenario. Run the Black Mirror test. What if someone got access to this? What if someone got in this? What's the worst that could happen? And if you run that Black Mirror test, you should come. And it's fun to do as a group. Sit there and just run it, going, right, we're about to go with this vendor, or actually this company is coming to us. They're going to go to the what if scenario with us. Let's have everything ready for them. We've got trust centers now that are becoming so much better. So that's probably where you can go to trust center. It runs you through, this is what happens if we had a breach. This is what happens if this, I think Haroon said at the beginning, if you think you don't have vulnerabilities, you think again. You have a vulnerability out there. You need to go through the what if scenario. If it happens, what would we do? So run the Black Mirror test and everything.
Black Mirror, what if? Love it. Ting and Big, love it as well. Connie, I think you have gems in this webinar that we can repurpose over here. Stijn, you're the final one on the tip.
The final one on the tip. Okay.
They gave big, small. We got like an amazing with the Black Mirror. So now I want the tip of Stijn, so that I'm sure that people upgrade their security game within 10 minutes.
Well, I think it's very simple. Up the game. Think about the people and the data, as we discussed earlier, because otherwise your business will fail because of it. If not today, then tomorrow.
Sounds like a plan. Guys, really want to be conscious about your time. I see that the people stay with us, so I'm pretty sure that there was value in what you were sharing because nobody dropped out during the session. I kind of like it. It feels like it's very broad topic, of course. I think we kind of give some tips and ideas. Thank you for sharing all those inside stories like you all guys do. I think that is where people understand better things. I will really keep in my mind that the people, we need to invest much more in training the people. We need to make it as frictionless as possible. And one good idea is definitely the tip of Greg to kind of gamify in there. And then I would say there are a lot of other practical tips that I will recouple in a blog post behind it. But I want to say a huge thank you to the three of you for joining us. Thank you to the audience that was present. Thank you, Connie, again for running the show in the background as always. And I will wish you all an amazing afternoon, folks. And if you want to say a last word, now is the time. Otherwise, I will put end stream.
Well done. Thank you for hosting.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you
gents.
for
Have a lovely
moderating,
afternoon
John.
then. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you to the audience as well. Bye.